Hi, I'm Spencer Connaughton. Welcome to the grand reopening of the most famous street in the world, Pennsylvania Avenue. Mrs. Bush and other important dignitaries are here to speak on this historic event. Let's watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Michael Van Valkenburg, landscape architect for Pennsylvania Avenue. John Cogbill III, chairman of the National Capital Planning Commission. The Honorable Anthony Williams, mayor of the District of Columbia. Mary Peters, administrator of the Federal Highway Administration. And Mrs. Laura Bush, First Lady of the United States.
Good morning. Isn't it a fabulous day here in Washington? I don't think we could have asked for a nicer day to celebrate the rebirth of Pennsylvania Avenue. On behalf of Secretary Mineta, President Bush, and the entire team at the United States Department of Transportation, and particularly Federal Highway Administration, welcome today to the reopening of Pennsylvania Avenue. Mrs. Bush, I gave you my word 14 months ago that the work on Pennsylvania Avenue, the streetscape improvements and the security improvements would be world class. And I said that the final product would be worthy of the American people, the avenue of the people, the house of the people, and I hope you will agree with me that we have achieved those goals in the reopening of this beautiful project. Thank you. I'm very proud to say that we have completed a gracious, beautiful, and secure public streetscape for all Americans to enjoy. And I want to thank you, Mrs. Bush and President Bush, for your tremendous leadership on this restoration project. This project could not have been successful without all of our great partners. Partners at the National Capital Planning Commission, the D.C. Department of Transportation, the General Services Administration, the Department of Treasury, Secret Service, and the National Park Service. And our special thanks especially to our Eastern Federal Lands Highway Division and our Turner Fairbank Highway Research Center, who contributed tremendously to this project. Folks, you have served me proud and served our nation proud in completing this important project. But I have to say, our driving force has been the First Lady. Your vision, Mrs. Bush, for a secure, beautiful avenue, which is literally in your own front yard, I think has been fulfilled. Renewal of Pennsylvania Avenue showcases priorities embraced by the United States Department of Transportation. The efforts that we have put on this project embody what we try to do nationally as we build transportation projects. We want every project to minimize disruptions to those who use it, to the neighborhoods and the cities that they serve, and local communities, and to complete our work quickly, efficiently, but beautifully, so it blends well with the surrounding environment. One of the criterion that I have placed on our folks as we build transportation projects is that they lay easy on the land, that they blend well with the land, and I think we certainly have achieved that goal in this project. It improves the community and it protects the environment while providing the security and the streetscape that we sought to complete here. In this Avenue project, we also lie lightly on history, because this area is of such historic significance. We wanted to preserve the setting and the views of this revered civic place and open it again to American visitors. As we prepare for the history to come, and most notably the January '05 inaugural parade, this project will serve the American public well. The security features will blend into the background and open the avenue up for the city and for all visitors to enjoy. In less than 3 months, when the parade comes to this restored historic place in which we today so proudly stand, we will see the full fruits of that effort. It is now my tremendous, tremendous honor to introduce to you Laura Bush, the First Lady of the United States, for her remarks.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you for your leadership, and congratulations on a marvelous Pennsylvania Avenue. And especially thanks to the Federal Highway Administration for their great work. Thanks to Mayor Williams for your constant support for the reopening of Pennsylvania Avenue, and to Chairman Cogbill for your vision, and to our architect Michael Van Valkenburg for your marvelous design. Thank you very much. Of course, a special thanks to Dick Friedman and everyone at the National Capital Planning Commission, the National Park Service, the United States Secret Service for the long hours you put into the design and the reopening of Pennsylvania Avenue. And I especially appreciate John Carl Warnicki. Thank you so much for even bringing this idea to my attention, and thank you for the work you've already done for Lafayette Park. Thank you very much. Today, after many months of anticipation, we celebrate the opening of the newly designed Pennsylvania Avenue. And I know this process hasn't been easy. After all, as Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan once said, if you don't have 40 years to spare, don't get involved in urban renewal. But in just a few months, you've transformed Pennsylvania Avenue into this very inviting urban landscape. And I've watched from those windows for the last year as this has happened. It's been a really wonderful process to watch, and it's so thrilling to have the fences down now and have it back open again. This thoroughfare has always been a connector, connecting the White House and the Capitol and the three branches of government. And a new Pennsylvania Avenue will again connect visitors with this glorious city, with the People's House, and with American heritage. President Bush and I look forward to continuing the great tradition established by President Jefferson of walking along this avenue on Inauguration Day. School children can explore the avenue and see where carriages once waited for President Jackson under the North Portico. Visitors can meet here and travel to the many monuments, theaters, and restaurants that are right here around the White House. And benches along the open walkways will make welcome spots for residents to enjoy the historic scenery of Washington, D.C. I'm proud that this stretch of the Avenue of the People has been designed for the people. In addition to the benches and the pedestrian walkways, rows of mature American elms will be planted this spring. The American elm will provide a spectacular promenade and welcome shade for pedestrians. These elms will replace native elm trees that once lined the south side of the avenue. President John Quincy Adams was very fond of the American elm, and a tree that he planted in 1826 graced the southeast lawn of the White House until 1990. A year later, Barbara Bush planted a tree propagated from the Adams elm on the White House grounds, and I'm really happy to continue the tradition by planting elms here along the avenue. More than 200 years ago, Pierre L'Enfant looked upon a stretch of land and imagined a city worthy of great ideals and great leaders. Pennsylvania Avenue would be his grand avenue, and he hoped to line it with institutions that would be, and I quote, attractive to the learned and afford diversion to the idle, unquote. Thanks to all of you, we take another step in fulfilling his vision. Congratulations on this great milestone, and thanks for your great work. And now it's my honor to introduce a mayor who not only makes our capital city a great place to visit, but he also makes it a wonderful place to call home. Mayor Anthony Williams.
I want all of you as a mayor of our city to know that certainly as mayor of the city, representing our city, I've congratulated the president and the first lady on the election. We look forward to working with them for another 4 years. And I have to tell you, the first lady has been an enormous supporter of our city, and a spectacular example of this is Pennsylvania Avenue. So as mayor, I'd like to ask all of you to give her another big hand for her leadership and thank her. And I had a couple of highway requests for her, but I want to also acknowledge, hey, I'm just doing my job, but I want to also acknowledge Mary Peters and the Federal Highway Administration. I want to thank, first of all, very, very importantly, John Cogbill and everybody on the NCPC, and also acknowledge his son, Captain James Cogbill, who's with the U.S. Army, and I understand is going to be serving in Iraq, and so please give him a big hand and thank him. for what he's doing. And Michael Van Valkenburg, am I saying your name right? Who is I call him the gardener, but he's a fancy title, is a landscape architect who really is gracing our city with your wonderful vision and your wonderful inspiration. Thank you so much as well. We really appreciate it because there are two sides to this. There's the national side of this. There's a local side of this. When I look at this, I look at this street as an American citizen, and you're almost overwhelmed by the beauty of the street and everything that this street represents. But then I look at it as a local mayor, and I look and I say, wow, there are no potholes on it. That's nice, And I say, well, how long is it going to take to plow the street? I mean, those are the kinds of things that you think about when you're a mayor. Dan Tangerlini, our transportation director for the district, is also here, and he can appreciate that. But on Freedom Plaza, right around the corner here, Benjamin McElway has an inscription on the plaza, and it really sums up, my feelings. He says, there are two Washingtons, political Washington, which everyone likes to talk about on the cable shows and the talk shows. But then there's a Washington that's made up of friends and neighbors. And today's wonderful announcement really opens up one of the world's premier avenues to our visitors, to our citizens, to our friends, and to our neighbors. As many of you know, the White House is one of our city's premier tourist attractions, because it is a symbol of democracy, and it's a symbol and a beacon of freedom. And our residents and visitors, I think, deserve nothing less than a beautiful pedestrian walkway in front of the White House. In many ways, our challenges with Pennsylvania Avenue come to symbolize the ongoing struggle that we all face in our efforts across the country, and certainly in this city, to better balance our national homeland security needs in a dangerous world with our desire to maintain not only the image and symbol of freedom, but real freedom for our citizens. And I think one of the wonderful things about our opening today is that we are doing a much better job and setting a great precedent in striking that balance. And my goal, as should be all of our goal, is to keep our city open and safe for our residents and the world's visitors. This street links the Capitol and the White House, and it's a path for every inaugural parade when we renew our democracy every 4 years. And it's my hope that someday we'll reopen this portion of Pennsylvania Avenue to all vehicle traffic, and that we'll take today as an important step in doing just that. And so I want to thank all the parties who've worked so hard on this project, and I look forward to taking my bicycle down this beautiful street as I move across the city. And I also look forward, and it's with real respect for him as a federal partner, working with people like the National Park Service, the Highway Administration, and others. It's now my honor to introduce the chair of the National Capital Planning Commission, John Cogbill, and thank him for his work. Ladies and gentlemen, John Cogbill. Thank you, John.
There are many people gathered here today who deserve our heartfelt thanks and appreciation. On behalf of the National Capital Planning Commission, I congratulate all who helped make this project a success. I first want to personally thank Administrator Peters and the Federal Highway Administration for their hard work and for hosting this event to celebrate the Avenue's magnificent new look. I believe no other agency could have achieved this outstanding result, Mary. I also want to especially thank our First Lady, Laura Bush. In large part, the vision of an avenue for the people is now a reality due to her leadership and support. We are indebted to you, Mrs. Bush, for your commitment to this project and for your interest in preserving one of our most treasured resources. Today is an historic day for America. After years of planning, Pennsylvania Avenue is once again a welcoming place for all to enjoy. A dignified civic space now graces the avenue where just a short time ago unsightly security barriers cluttered the street. In recent years, we have all been challenged to find acceptable ways to protect Washington against unprecedented threats. But it is vital that we do so without sacrificing the very values that we cherish: accessibility, openness, and civic beauty. When an increasing number of barriers began to mar the beauty of this avenue, NCPC initiated an effort to create a dignified pedestrian space for America's Main Street. Bringing together dozens of stakeholders and a talented designer, NCPC set the stage for change. We envisioned a setting that would honor views to the U.S. Capitol, preserve the historic integrity of the street, and provide an enjoyable promenade. Standing here right now, we all see the results of that vision, a vision that I believe stands out for its graceful simplicity and its respect for the historic integrity of the site. The success of this effort resonates far beyond these two blocks and marks a turning point in the history of our nation's capital. It reaffirms that public spaces can be both secure and welcoming. It demonstrates that the United States will not allow fear to undermine the integrity of our country and the White House setting, the people's place. It shows that effective security can be thoughtfully designed to blend into the city's architecture and streetscapes. I conclude by acknowledging the efforts of the key partners who worked tirelessly on this effort. NCPC Commissioner and an Interagency Security Task Force Chairman, and my friend and colleague, Dick Friedman. The District of Columbia, the National Park Service, the United States Secret Service, landscape architect Michael Van Valkenburg, and the Federal Highway Administration, which took up the baton in the final stages of this race and transformed the very ground upon which we now stand. Less than a year since breaking ground, the Avenue is now a place for which we can all be proud. I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce the principal designer of this historic undertaking, Michael Van Valkenburg of Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates.
Thank you, sir. I would like to just thank once again the National Capital Planning Commission and Federal Highways for being spectacular collaborators, as truly every other agency that we came into contact with during this remarkable project was. I just want to talk a little bit about the design of the avenue and some of the things that we were meaning that it would stand for, and the relationship of that to this now 200-year experiment of figuring out what it means for a democratic society to build a city where its citizens feel welcomed. And when we visited the Avenue as a design team a couple years ago now, I was surprised at how the Avenue felt, and I feel really great this morning that that Americans will now be able to freely enter the Avenue from the ends, and especially the citizens of the District of Columbia will have a sense that this Avenue is theirs as well. Trees seem to be the uniting thing on this project that we all have found a way to talk about and be excited about. Unfortunately, they're the one thing that's not here this afternoon. So I wanted to say a little bit about it. There is behind us all, behind the urn, a kind of young American elm. Its branches are reaching upwards, and it's just starting to show the yellow color. And that's about the size of the trees that will be planted in the spring. And it's a sort of, the trees are an interesting story. And I have to say that I was quite surprised when I met with the mayor that he immediately wanted to get down to talking about trees, which turned out to be one of his passions, and the hope that we would consider the disease-resistant strain of American elm. And to show the research that we went to, we ended up selecting a kind of elm that shows great resistance to the American elm disease. It's called the Princeton elm, and they're actually being grown as we speak in Georgia, where I'll be selecting from a block of trees that we've reserved. And in the spring, when the inauguration is complete and the trees will have lots of time and a slightly unhurried time to get adjusted to their new home, almost 100 trees will be planted along the avenue as an alley from one end to the other. I just would like to close on reminding everybody about the origin of Pennsylvania Avenue and the aesthetics that Thomas Jefferson imagined, and indeed why there's a street in front of the White House at all. The historic plan of Washington by the French planner L'Enfant was for the White House to sit in a park, and there was not to be a street where we all are today. And Jefferson, who not only was a pretty good politician, but an enormously talented architect and landscape architect, insisted on this street. And the reason was the symbolism. And he felt that Americans would want the president and the First Lady to live in a house that felt accessible to all Americans. And so, having been a part of reaffirming the meaning of that at the turn of this new century has, for me, been a career-defining moment. And I want to thank Mrs. Bush and everyone here for making that possible. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much, and I hope that we have achieved the vision that you laid out so well for us. You did a tremendous job of doing that. Mrs. Bush, Mayor Williams, John Cogbill, and Michael Van Valkenburg, I hope that the vision of what we all sought to create together has indeed come to fulfillment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new day for this historic street. This is the most significant renovation that has been done since President Grant first put pavement on this street, and I think it's one that will serve us well for many, many years to come. An excellent team has done a wonderful job of bringing us to this day, and our agency is very proud to have carried it across the finish line. Mrs. Bush, I often think when we successfully deliver a transportation project, it's a little like giving birth, and it is so worth it today. Thank you all so much for joining us on this historic occasion today, and please enjoy the street. Thank you again for attending.